Hey everyone, welcome to Designing Designers, the podcast where we break down how game designers actually think. And so each week we're going to be exploring a different topic in game design. And this week we're going to be diving into the process of design interview questions and ideally kind of diving into the thought-provoking nature of these design interview questions. So I'm Tamerlane. I am an economy designer. I have about 10 years of experience. Started off my career at Riot, and I've been at a couple other studios since. You can check out more information below in the description. And Robert, go ahead.
Yeah, my name is Robert Hrouda. I am a senior game designer with about 18 years of experience. I've worked at 6 different companies so far, noteworthily having worked at ArenaNet and Cryptic Studios, and now Other Side Entertainment, where I work with my buddy over there, Tamerlane.
That's me. Yeah, cool. So today, really, what we're going to be talking about is the premise of design questions. So design interviews have always been kind of tricky. Everyone handles design differently. There's no right way to tackle design, and personally, I find that to be really what makes design interesting. But in this capacity, what I want to talk about is our own experiences with how these design interview questions have kind of occurred. So I guess really the one I want to focus on first before we get started, and I think we can kind of segue into it a little bit deeper, is what do you think the objective behind a design question is, Rob?
I think the design question should largely help you as an interviewer understand the sort of limitations that a person comes to the table with. Not everyone's going to be very creative. Not everyone's going to be, very adaptable. And I think that the design interview and the questions that you ask should be finding out where this person is lacking, where they're excelling. That shouldn't be a shock to anybody. But I think when it comes specifically to design, there's a few key factors that the design question should really be helping to answer. Otherwise, it's just lost time, and time in an interview. Usually you get 60 minutes, and it disappears very very especially on
absolutely
long-winded, rambling questions. And
you're familiar. And myself too. I'm sure you're familiar with this, as we've had multiple one-on-ones. It's very easy for us to get into a tangent because we start addressing some type of design problem. But I would say, I kind of agree. I'm more inclined to say that I feel like the objective behind a design question is to see how you think, because I often tell people, there are a lot of students that I've chatted with that will say or ask me a question how do I know if my answer is right? And I'm like, well, I don't care if your answer is right. I actually care about how you reach that answer, the journey that you took to get to that answer, and then ultimately, being willing to defend it when I inevitably challenge your answer. Because even if it's the right answer, I'm still going to challenge it. Because there's no such thing as unfalsifiable design, and if you're in a position where you create some type of solution to a design problem that has nothing that you can possibly challenge it with, well, first of all, that doesn't exist. Everything is challengeable. And I think as far as I'm concerned, concepts that are unfalsifiable are pointless to talk about. And so, in any circumstance, I as the interviewer should be able to look at the solution that you've provided me, and I should be able to identify some issue with it, and then I need to challenge you on it. And if your answer to my challenge is, "Oh, you're right," I'm just wrong, then that to me that's a huge failure, right? Ideally, you would have thought about that potential failure, and then you will be able to give me some type of additional insights about that failure that might exist, right? I think that it's really important for me to, I would say this is where my Riot training kind of kicked in. Back in the day before Riot changed their values, we had challenge convention. And a lot of people interpreted that as going to any designer or anybody and just saying, I dislike what you're doing, and let me explain why. And that felt really uncomfortable, but it also kind of drilled into me this mindset of aggressive design, and also ego death design, where I'm willing to let people rag and say my design sucks, and then I need to be ready to prepared to like challenge back and say, no, actually, let me explain to you why it doesn't suck.
I think to get to that place takes a lot of time and experience, though. Like
it only took me 2 years, 2 years of 2 years of battering pestle and mortar,
well,
right?
Yeah, and in some studios that behavior and that sort of technique is more widely adapted than in others. I've worked in a couple fairly passive studios that you weren't going to get that type of just smashing.
Yeah, and I don't think it's bad, right? I don't think it's bad for a studio to be more passive and like more polite. I would argue that the way that we tackled it at Riot might have been a little too egregious in terms of like how like aggressive we were, because I think it takes a certain type of person to be able to tackle that, and I don't think we should be siloing certain types of personalities into a particular role in design. It felt like it was a little uninclusive. Though to be clear, like this is an atmosphere and culture that's shifted and changed since then. As far as I'm aware, it's not a thing anymore. I gained value from it.
No, most certainly, and I think that as like a junior designer, especially when you're talking to people who are way more experienced than you are. There is a sort of like you're learning from them. And so if they're like, no, that's not the right way to do this, I think there's a time and a place for having, your own vision and being like, no, I actually really believe in this. Hear me out. Like, let me maybe try to explain this differently, right? There's a point where defending your ideas is good. I think that as a junior designer, you're kind of still learning a lot of what that means. Yeah. And I think that, it's not. I think people could look at it like, oh, you're rolling over when some senior dev or a lead is like, no, I think this is the better way of doing it. But I don't necessarily look at it that way. I look at it more like these are all learning opportunities. And even now, 18 years into my career, I still get into, moments with my leads, people who have more experience. Sometimes even people who have less experience than I do, and they're going to want to do things differently, whether or not that's right or wrong. Sometimes you may not know the larger context of how those decisions are made, but I think it's important still as a designer that you do offer some challenge of what their assessment is. Be willing to stand by the things that you've said and the way your own design sensibilities, but also being willing to be versatile and able to adjust your mindset for the sake of, like, a design lead's got a lot of bullshit on their plate, you have to be able to adapt to what their vision is. There's a hierarchical structure in place. So your ability to adapt to that. Go ahead.
No worries. I was gonna say I think you kind of covered it, but like I guess I'm wondering, like, do you think? I mean, how do you? I try to tailor the way I approach, like, my feedback, right, to the individual that I'm chatting with. I feel like it can be pretty obvious in some cases how someone can tackle or experience the feedback, and in many cases, like I felt like an easy way to tackle it is kind of like almost like a Socratic method approach, or like at least like asking a question about it instead of instead of giving them the answer, like ask the question that in theory should lead them to the answer. And I feel like that has been a way that I've been able to like be a little bit more soft. I've worked with a couple of designers who are more junior than I am recently, and oftentimes I'll give them feedback and just be like, oh yeah, interesting, but like, have you thought about this thing or whatever? And that in theory, either they've thought about it or they haven't, and then in theory they should start contemplating that too, right? I don't know. I mean, like, I guess like direct challenges I think are a little bit harder to deal with versus like open-ended questions tend to be a little bit easier to cope with, because it also leads, it's like kind of like what's that premise, like you can take a horse to water but you can't make it drink or whatever, that kind of thing, and so in this case you're essentially putting out the water in front of them and saying, hey, right? But if I just
Right.
tell them, hey, this water's here and drink it, like that's like lame, and I feel like you don't learn, right? And that's been a really like that's been kind of like what's been really fun in this aspect. And I feel like this is a big problem for design, and this is also part of the reason why like this podcast exists is we don't really often have avenues in which we can do this except with our peers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if we don't have peers, right, then what, right?
Right.
For entry level, like a lot of entry level designers actually have most designers that I know that are entry level like did not start as a designer. They kind of just flipped into it after working as something else or whatever.
That was that's how my career got started.
Yeah. I mean, I have a friend who was a lawyer who became a game designer, right? Like it's like it's always interesting how like the shift ends up happening because there's no real clear understanding of what is design, what are you supposed to do, what is good, what is bad, that kind of stuff. But anyways, moving off of the objective, I'm sure both you and I have a strenuous number of design questions that we just did not like.
Oh yeah.
So I can start with this one because man, this one was like on the in my head, and it's been something that I've really disliked because I call it trickery. I don't like questions. I don't like design questions that are intended to deceive the person. And also take advantage of the fact that they're probably in an anxious like situation as they're interviewing, right?
Sure.
And so in many cases, like when we would interview at specific companies, right? Like we'd have a bunch of candidates who might be fairly young, right? In many cases, their first job. And so to me, we had a question that I didn't like. This was a riot, I observed this question being asked, and I wrote it down. And I thought to myself, maybe I should keep this in mind. Maybe it's a good question. And then I reflected on it. I was like, I don't like this question. So essentially, you would get this person to talk about like some League of Legends character that they didn't like. So I'm going to say Brand, for example, right? They don't like Brand. They don't like how Brand's kit works and all that. They find that it's like a disruptive and unhealthy kit. And you're like, okay, cool. What parts of Brand are unhealthy? It's like, well, I don't like his stuns. I don't like whatever. It doesn't matter, right? And then we would then, give him like 3 or 4 more questions and all that. Then we pivot back and say, I want you to evaluate a champion design. And we would basically restate all of Brand's kit, but now he's like ice. Like instead of fire, he's ice, right?
Right.
It's like exact same kit. Literally nothing's changed. Like we'll continuously just like discuss with it and all that. And the idea behind it was, is this person even paying attention? And you wouldn't be surprised, or maybe you would be surprised, but a very large amount of people would answer it saying, oh, I like that, or I think that might be okay. There might be some tuning issues that we need to address or whatever. I'm not sure, blah, 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 right? But the fail parameter there is they didn't recognize that they just complained about this character, and we just restated the exact same kit, but just changed like one like avenue about it, and they fell for it. And in my head, I was like, this didn't give me any value as the person asking the question, because all it taught me is this person wasn't paying attention, and that's a separate issue. And it's a good filter check, but that's not my job. By the time they get to me, like I'm not supposed to be filtering like that they're paying attention. I'm supposed to be filtering whether or not they understand concepts, right?
Yeah, and in a high anxiety moment, like this is like you're looking at the next your answer. You have an hour to try to make the next, in my opinion, 2 to 5 years of your life a thing, right? Like it's an hour that is a high anxiety, high tension moment. And like a lot of the time, like you're in the zone. You're like, I'm answering questions. I'm trying to understand what they're asking while I'm answering the questions. And then it's like, it's a little bit trickery right there. I can understand where there's a value in it, but I don't think that value is, well, let me say, I think you get that value way earlier in the process of somebody who is like not going to be paying attention. Like to ask it at that point where you're in like in-person interviews, it feels to me like if you're really going to filter somebody off of this information, this should have happened a while ago.
Yeah, exactly. I'm with you there, and like honestly, like it's like. I know myself, and like I just we'll talk about it later about one of my favorite design questions. But it's oftentimes like I'm the kind of person where once I've said a gaffe, right, and I'm well known with my peers and my friends and everybody in my life that I am subject to the gaffe. it is inevitable that I will say something that I did not mean. Because my brain, my mouth operates faster than my brain is how I've been framing it, right? Like I'm struggling to keep up. Exactly, right? Exactly, right? And so as a result, like what that inevitably runs into is I'll say something that I didn't mean, and like it's a mess up. As we segue into it later, like it's something that like I've felt like I've said something that I did not mean in an interview, and I feel like my entire interview is done, right? And I think another part of why I dislike this question in particular is because after we said it, we would also be like, oh, well, we just renamed Brandt's kid, but made him Ice. And then, like, you now know that person who just, experienced that question is like, well, the rest of it's pointless. I messed up, right?
Yep.
And, like, you've just now ruined the entire experience we lost value on our end, then we lost value on their end. And I'm like, there was no value gained here outside of they're not paying attention, and that's not a good use of design question time when it's easy to make one question. It's easy to make any sequence of questions in design last forever.
Right.
Because it's so fun to talk about, in my opinion.
Yeah. What if, and then, there's you can keep dragging on with these things.
Yeah, it's all contingent on how willing you are to continue talking about whatever topic you are. And I know you, I know myself, like it's very trivial to continue on into these like ongoing mindsets. And there's so much more value that can be gained for you than a simple, are you paying attention? Kind of check, right?
Yeah.
Forgetting about anxiety and other psyche aspects that are involved. But anyways, how about you? What's the your least favorite design question and why?
I have two that I struggle with, but I will say the one that I get more than anything is here's a game that you've worked on. I'll bring up a very specific instance, but you can kind of mix and match whatever you would want to say in this. Hey, you have a progression system in Neverwinter Online. If you wanted to, what would you change about it? Like
super vague, open-ended, like that?
Super vague and open-ended. And
unlimited agency, you can do anything.
Well, sometimes they'll bring that up. And so like I'm a very production-minded designer, and so I'll be like, okay, what would I do different? What are my resources? Like one of the first things as a designer I'm always asking my lead, my production team is, what are the resources I have? How much time do I have? Because it's like, oh, are you looking for a quick Band-Aid solution? Are you looking for a deeper, systemic solve? Then, both of those things have very different resource allocations to them. And I've been burned a few times in my career when it's like, hey, Rob, we're going to have you work on a boss encounter. And it's like, okay, cool. And I'll draft up this spec about a cool boss encounter I think I could make. And then they go, ooh, well, we didn't know at the time, but you're actually not going to get any art resources for this. And we kind of need you to use this character model. And it's like, all right, I just did a dragon boss type design, and now you're telling me I have to use a sword and shield based biped enemy. Okay, so none of what I just did is going to have any application, right? So
yeah,
to get to the question, I'll usually start by being like, all right, what are my resources for this? And 9 times out of 10, they say the same thing. Oh, whatever you want. Pie in the sky.
Unlimited resources.
Which
is like unrealistic. It's literally unrealistic. Like it's never the case.
Yeah, and it's in that moment that I ask myself, what are they actually asking me right here? Like, are they looking for just creative nonsense that I'm about to throw at them? Because, in that question, and in this finite amount of time you have to not only think up how to answer that question, but to then convey and answer that question, what do they actually want when they're asking this question? Obviously, they're not looking for you to solve how do you make your game better, or how do you make the game you're working on or the game that they're talking about. Sometimes they won't even ask me about the game I'm working on. I've had someone ask me, "Hey, you played Diablo, right?" And it's like, "Yeah, I played the recent Diablo 4, Diablo, 2, all that sort of stuff." Like, okay, design a character for me. Or design a class for me. And it's like, okay, what are my resources? You can anything you want. And it's just like, you sit there and you're like, is this a creativity check? Is this you just wondering what I'm like to be creative with? And the first thing I tend to do is I tend to be like, okay, if we're just going to be spitball whiteboarding, throwing ideas at the wall, then I like to work with other people in that regard, right? I like to be like, okay, what about X, Y, and Z? Like, is there anything about either of these ideas that really resonate with you? And the interviewer always does the same thing. Oh, just come up with it on your own. And it's like, okay, so you're just asking me to sit here and exposit what I would do with a new class, how I'd change a system, and how I can, I guess convince you that my system is better or my class is going to be somehow more entertaining than the other classes. And so I can understand that, like, to a degree they're asking you to communicate and convey ideas, but aren't we already doing that with this interview in general? Like, isn't that inherently part of what we're doing here?
It's a little too vague, in my opinion. Like, I think it's a little too vague, and I find it a little lame of a question.
I can just sit here and throw ideas. Like, that's not my problem. And hey, I don't like this blank part of your idea. And it's like, okay, we're literally just spitballing here. If you don't like that part, I can adjust it, or I can move on. And I also feel like it's a little incompatible with certain types of people too. So, like, for example, I'm not the kind of person that's going to write down, give you 1,000 different ideas, because I don't like doing that. Instead, I sit down, I lay my feet up, as I'm pondering existence and reality or whatever, and then eventually I'll get back to you with, I don't know, maybe 3 to 5 ideas that I like, right? And that's my design approach, right? I really don't like designing with overbearing abundant of ideas, because I find that it's so. Yes, I can trivially do that. Like, we can sit down, I can write down 1,000 different things that I want to do. I remember I used to write. I still have it. It's a huge book of all the different champions that I wanted to help create on League of Legends or whatever, right? And it's a ton of different ideas. And my God, so many of them are bad. I had a character that I wanted to work on that would go and inject the jungle camps and make them his pets. He was like a mad scientist that would corrupt things, and I was like, that's fucking hilarious, right? But I don't know, I don't think it's necessary to I don't think that it's necessary for me to then communicate and articulate all of that information during the interview. But yeah, I think the key thing is really not setting. I think that question can be fine if they set it up with parameters and constraints. But without constraints and it's open-minded, then it's you're not fine. If you're looking for a designer that is able to do anything with unlimited resources, then there's a billion of them. It's not. There's nothing about that question that I've been able to in my career go, man, that helped me understand more about a person. Because I can't understand what it is that they're gaining from my answer to that question. I think it's a good maybe icebreaker. It usually happens early on or early to middle of the conversation, but I really feel like it takes up a lot of time to then set up something and then build all this stuff with it. All of it trapped in your mind the entire time, because you're not writing these things out. It's not, you're not piecing all these things together. There's no referential materials for you to go oh, this and this, and you can connect those dots or anything. It's all just basically in your head in a high anxiety moment. So you're forgetting aspects and you're replacing things, and maybe there's some value in that and seeing how a person just behaves in that situation. But I don't feel like you could get that in so many other ways.
There are way better ways to tackle that. Yeah, certainly. And it kind of goes back into the premise of the point of it is to see how you think about design, as in my perspective on what a design question should be. And I can think about how you design stuff, but if you're unlimited resources and that's a situation where external to I don't know, Meta until they just shut down their studio, the virtual reality studio, right? Until then, that wasn't really a thing. Like I can't think of a studio that's like, yeah, unlimited resources. Heck, like when I worked on League of Legends, who is unironically one of the like research studios, right? And they would still be like, we only have like 4 engineers, so like good luck. And I'm like, all right, cool, right? Like it's important for me to have the parameters to understand like what I'm supposed to like be doing, because there's a limitation to how much you can do. And if like you're giving us unlimited potential with no, like I literally shouldn't care about like I don't know how this will affect anything. Like then yeah, like yes, if I'm playing God, I can do what I want. And it's trivial, and I'll change everything. And now you're asking me a question for the purposes of like how I should be leading the entire design, not just as a designer. Which as a designer, I'm never going to be, and as an individual contributor, I'm never going to be in a situation where I'm taking over and like subverting the creative director and lead designer's vision. But I might, who knows? But I've as someone who's done that, I get reined back sometimes. So.
Well, and I think it's important to remember that you can, as a designer, do that. There's a time and a place for everything. 3 weeks before a milestone or before some sort of like really big date, not a great time to be, hey, here's my idea that's like kind of crazy and different, because everyone's just going to go, yeah, okay, we have enough going on right now. Stop it, right? Like, time and place, right?
I am exactly that person that you'll see me come in and I'll always, I'm a tongue-in-cheek responding with something like that, because like I'll be like, I see that we have launch in X amount of time, so I think this is the perfect time to talk about how we should introduce loot boxes into our ecosystem. And then they're just like, haha. Oh God! Wait.
Oh wait, he's serious.
No, but like I always do it tongue in cheek. It's never, and I deliver it in a very dry manner, which I think causes people to think I'm being serious. But I don't know. I prefer to understand the parameters. So I hear what you're saying about why that wouldn't like work as a question. I think again, like as we said, like there's a way to make it work, but it's not the way that it's being done where it's like unlimited potential. I also recognize that. I feel like it's not like, I don't know. It's like, I just want to see what you think of. Like, it's like, okay, well, I mean, that's cool, I guess. I don't know.
And in theory, you can already get that. Like, if it's a seasoned designer who's got like 3 to 5 years of experience, you should already be able to tell how they do things based on the work that they've done, right?
Correct. Yeah, they have a portfolio. Or
they got a portfolio 9 times out of 10, and you can see sort of like how they're you can understand a lot about how that comes into play.
Yeah.
And then for like a junior designer or someone who doesn't have that, I think it's just a terrifying question for anybody to have to.
It also
to
sets like false like expectations on like what reality looks like, which reality will almost never look like that. All right, well, let's go ahead and move off of the bad design questions. We can go ahead and get started with our favorite design questions. Sure. And I guess since I answered last time, what is an example of the best design question that you have ever been asked? And then tell me why you liked it.
Yeah, if my last, the thing I hate the most is broad, vague, open-ended things. My favorite is something that puts me more in a box, right? And to give an example, I was testing at ArenaNet, and I had three leads and myself in a room, them sitting across a table from me, no less, just all 3 staring me down. And they handed me a deck of Magic the Gathering cards, and they said, hey, we want you to build us a quest event chain. This is for a game design position, right? Like a generic game design position, which I'm sure we'll talk about it in the future, the differences between like systems, content, level, all that sorts of fun stuff. But this is just for a very generic position. They didn't really draw a distinction back then. For this particular spot, and so they hand me this deck of cards and they say, make us an event chain with the things you have in this deck of cards, and they gave me about like 3 minutes, and I'm sitting here going through the card deck and figuring out, okay, here's a player ally, here's enemies, here's location, here's all this stuff. Yeah, it was fun. In the meantime, they're talking on the other side of the table about the things that I'm picking and making little snipey comments. Oh, they're going for the orc bad guy, huh?
Okay.
All right. Oh, it's in a swamp, huh? Original. You know, like they're across the table, just like sniping me with these little comments here and there.
Yeah. I find those hilarious, but I also feel like it can be risky. But I find it interesting.
Oh, as a junior, I was a junior designer. This was me applying for like regular game designer. This was no longer a junior position. This is
mid-level.
like, the mid-level. This was me graduating into that, and that was kind of scary, getting a little like, going with the orc bad guy, huh?
And you're like, oh wait, should I change it? You know,
well, I mean, there's also this.
but you didn't change it, right?
I didn't. No, I kept it. Mainly because there wasn't any other really bad characters that looked bad in there. But so anyways, I get this whole quest chain lined out, and I describe the whole thing to them, tell them how it's supposed to work and everything, and then they begin to like pick it apart, right?
Yeah.
Like they begin asking me questions about how are these boss mechanics going to work? How are you informing those boss mechanics during this phase right here? What's an enemy that you have along the way that helps foretell sort of like what the big bad is going to be? How are you making all these connective tissue between these things? Oh, I don't, let's say I have to take away, I used a stolen chicken as the genesis for why you're doing what you're doing, right? An orc band stole chickens from a farmer, and you are supposed to be going through to get it back. And and so they're like, okay, well, we're going to take away the chicken now. How do you react? How are you now restructuring this without the chicken? Because you thought you had the chicken, now you don't, right? And those were very tough questions that demanded me to pivot and change my design, be amiable to change,
okay,
and
that's fun,
and deal with the limitations. Yeah, it was a really fun one, and I guess I did good enough because they ended up hiring me, but I walked away from that one. Hey, kudos! But I walked away from that one, and I was like, they didn't really care about the chain itself. Like I was still pretty young in my career. I think I had about like 2 or 3 years of experience at that point. I think I was around 2. And so I was like, here's this fun creative thing that I've done, right? Like I've made this fun creative chain with your Magic the Gathering cards. And then they ripped it to shreds. And I remember if there was like a mental image of myself by the end of it, I think it was like me like crawling my way out of that office because it was brutal.
Yeah.
But I walked away with it thinking that what I had done was not shown them that I can be necessarily the most creative person, because that wasn't, the cards were dictating the degree of creativity, right?
Yeah, correct.
So it wasn't like I had this pie in the sky, build us something magnificent. It was, you have a limited set of resources. How do you use them? And how do you make those resources, what's the unique thing that you can do with these resources that is intriguing on a narrative level?
Yeah.
And then, as would come to pass, we didn't have a whole lot of assets that we could just, I need 15 orcs, right? Or I need five different chicken models. Now you got the one chicken model, maybe 2, if the artist was like in the zone and just wanted to give you a little extra. But you don't get limitless resources. So
correct. Yeah.
The question for them was, how does this guy work with a very limited resource set to build something? And then how does this guy work when we start picking things apart, when he's getting feedback about these things, and how is he perceiving the feedback and working with that feedback?
Yeah.
And for me, it's
the journey, right? Like it's like the pathway. It's the journey. It's the pathway. It's also like, how do you deal with like these emergent like shifts in the experience. No, I mean, that's a really good way to approach it. I'm assuming the Magic the Gathering like quest journey thing was the entire premise of the interview, and the shifts and deviations was the way the interview went. Like, is that how it kind of operated?
I think so. I think we probably spent around half an hour. And I had all three of the leads for about an hour to 45 minutes, I want to say. So the majority of it was like a really quick 5-minute, just like talk, relax, introduction sort of thing. And then it was, like 30 minutes of this thing, and then them picking it apart, me reacting, holding my ground in some spots, and then in other spots being like, yeah, that was kind of a weak thing that I did that I was hoping would set up over here, but I can understand that that's not working out now, especially once you've taken away X, Y, and Z from this. So now we can change this spot, and hey, I have this card right here. Can I put this card in now, right? And it was a lot about being agile.
That makes sense.
And being willing to take feedback, being willing to defend myself to a degree, but when you had three leads staring you down as a junior designer, being like, okay, we actually don't like that. It's like, well, that thing must fucking suck, and you throw it away.
Exactly. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No. I hear you on that. Yeah. I mean, but I find that strategy really like interesting. I kind of want to tackle. I mean, since I work in monetization design, economy design, stuff like that. Like, I think like that would be interesting. To be like, hey, make a battle pass. Which literally is exactly like the same constraints that exist, because ultimately you don't have unlimited resources to make a battle pass. You literally have incredibly limited resources to make a battle pass, which is always why it's been funny where like people keep asking me, in many of my roles that I've been in, they're like, can you make a battle pass for us? And I'm like, what are my resources? And they're like, we figured it out. You make the battle pass first. I'm like, nope, that's not how it works. I need to know.
Nope.
And then I also have to remind them, like, this doesn't make us money. Like, remember, this is a loss leader. We will lose money here.
This is retention, not financial gain.
Exactly. And like then it falls flat, and it's really funny. But that's why product. It's always been nice when like product is the one that makes the assets for me, and then I can just pick and choose whatever I feel like at a later point, and that is a lot easier for me to tackle it. But anyways,
how about you?
Yeah.
What's tell me your favorite design interview question.
Oh man, I have two, but I guess I'll pick my one that I had at Riot. So this was like one of my first interviews that I've ever done in my gaming career. I wouldn't say that. At this point, I'd probably interviewed Riot interviews for a while, like for context, right? And this was a while back. I think it's changed a lot since then. But back in my day, it was like a 10-step interview process. And I remember I was on my on-site interview at this point, which required me to go, I believe, through 4 interviews prior to that to get to my on-site interview. But then my on-site interview was like, I think 5 interviews of 2 people each, back to back to back to back, from like 9 a.m. to like 5 p.m. Obviously got a break, I got a lunch break.
Yeah.
But like it was pretty strenuous, I'm gonna be honest with you. I mean, I enjoyed it. That said, though, in one of my interviews, I was with 2 folks, and it turns out these were pretty famous designers that worked on League of Legends, but I didn't know them mainly because, like, when we were in the community, we knew a lot of the famous writers from their tags, but we didn't know, like, who these individuals were. So now, without naming the names, but, once I started going through the story, it could be, like, there could be some insight into who I'm talking about. I came in and a designer was like, all right, cool, nice to meet you, blah, blah, blah. Why do you want to work at Riot? And, it's like, people are like, what's Riot? Like, I want to work there. Yeah. I mean, I think I was 19, I'm pretty sure at the time. So like, I wasn't thinking about that at all, really. I was thinking more like, I want to work there because, like, I love League of Legends. League of Legends has reshaped my life, which, it wasn't incorrect. But then I said, like, ultimately, though, like, I just feel like I can bring something to the table. I was like, what can you bring to the table? I was like, well, I just felt, that you guys reworked one of my favorite characters, Rengar. He used to be this really cool, like, assassin-esque character that I felt really strongly about. And this is around 2017. I was explaining, saying like recently he had been reworked to become like less assassin-esque, more bruiser-esque. It was the assassin rework gameplay update that occurred, and I felt really strongly that Rengar specifically, like he was done dirty. Like he's no longer the character that I loved, and there's a reason why people don't play him anymore. Like the Rengar community, I'm someone who feels like a representative of the Rengar community because at the time I was a very high skill player, and I was saying like I felt really strongly that like this character no longer represented what I wanted, and I just didn't want to play him anymore. And many of my peers also felt similarly, so I felt strongly about coming to the company, joining the company, and like if I can't convince you to fix it, I'll fix it myself, kind of thing. And then the entire time I'm talking, for some reason, the other designer in the room is just laughing, and I'm like, "Oh, did I say something funny? I'm just sorry." He's like, "Oh yeah, no, this dude, it was his rework. Like he did it. This was his project. That was his pet project." And the other designer's been the entire time while I was answering, he's completely deadpan, zero expression at all. Like did not smile at all. Later on, to be clear, by the way, he comes up to me and he's just like, "Hey, like, just like letting you know, like, I did that on purpose. Like, I wanted to see how uncomfortable you get." I was like, "Oh, thanks. Cool." But
That's nice.
But yeah, but to be clear, like, that wasn't the question. The question that was actually interesting was the question the other designer then asked right after that. But I wanted to set a foundation of where my atmosphere went in my headspace. Like I was, my anxiety was already through the roof because I was at Riot Games in person or an on-site interview. At this point, my third interview of the day, and I'm anxious as heck, right? And now we're going to the actual brunt of it. So the other designer, he looks at me and he's like, "Hey, okay, so why is Graves W unhealthy?" And I'm like, "Unhealthy? Okay. Well, Graves W, it's unhealthy because, it's a point-and-click ability. There's, like, nothing that I'm doing. There's no skill shot. There's no skill expression. I just press it. It appears onto somebody else. They lose vision. They can't see. And so me, as the player, I'm like, I outplayed them without any skill on my part. And then the person who's hit by it doesn't feel like they got outplayed. They just got hit by an ability that they know exists. But there's like an unfavorable balance, right, between them of the level of like, what do you call it, like frustration experience, right? I don't get any value. They're frustrated, right? And then ultimately, the question ends up being like, when we're doing that, what makes that unhealthy? Oh, by the way, Rob, you're fidgeting.
I'm fidgeting.
Yeah, you are. Sorry, I could hear it through the audio. I just wanted to let you know.
Shoot.
No, it's okay. No worries. Back on this though. But the Graves W example, like I also pointed out, saying like it's kind of frustrating to me when I'm subject to it because I can't even communicate to my teammates like, "Yo, I'm blind. I can't see." And so from their end, they're like, "Look at this headless chicken walking around. Like, what an idiot. Like, like why isn't he playing it correctly?" So nobody even knows that I'm getting outplayed right now. And then the player, on the other hand, the person who's like doing it to me, doesn't even feel like he outplayed me. He just did a thing that his kid, like, does. I mean, heck, Graves W is so unimportant in terms of like skill expression for Graves that Graves players will clear their jungle and use W sometimes to like wipe out the last remnants of the camp. Like it's that level of like,
right,
doesn't matter, right? And so as a result, he's like, "Okay, cool, I got it," right? I was like, "All right, sweet." And he's like, "Now explain to me the difference between Graves W and Karthus R." And so Graves W being the smoke bomb, point and click, basic ability, Karthus R being an ultimate ability that hits 5 different people at the same time. I mean, the easy answer is, well, one's global. It's an ultimate ability, so I guess it has the capacity to be more. You're allowed to like have the more agency over other people because you're using your ultimate abilities. Like, but why is that healthy? And I'm like, is it healthy? And that was the first time I actually thought about this. Is Karthus R healthy? I haven't thought about like, is it actually healthy? I don't know because I knew Graves W wasn't healthy, but Karthus R was like, wait, is it unhealthy? Wait a second. And you can see like the other designers like watching me like as I'm like thinking about it, and I think out loud. I don't like to like think in my head. I like to audibly be like, is it unhealthy? I wonder. And then I thought about it for a little bit longer, right? And I was like, well, I guess like with Graves W, it's instantaneous. I throw it at somebody, it just manifests on that one person, and they're hit by it. then the player that experienced Graves W has no way of communicating it, meaning that other players have no ability to express empathy towards your experience as well. And he's like, okay, I guess that's part of it. Yeah, I guess Karthus R hits everybody, so everyone experiences the same the same objective experience of the Karthus R is coming at me. They have subjectivity towards like the stats that they have, so the impact that it will have on you. But objectively, everyone's getting hit, right? And then I'm like, I don't know if that's enough to make it like unhealthy though, because it's still an ultimate ability, and that's a huge way. And it's like, well, the big shift here that like he kind of paused, and I actually failed to like address this question because I didn't realize that this was a thing that existed or a concept that I needed to think about. But he says, well, all of that put together, the reason that Karthus R is differentiated from Graves W, despite all of these other parameters that you set up, Karthus R has a ritual that adds in player satisfaction to the individual as well, and also adds in player satisfaction and tension to the players who are experiencing it. So what that means is in Karthus's case, he's channeling. He's like, whatever the fucking like light beams from heaven come down. Everyone is like, oh no, I'm about to get hit, right? And so every single player feels like they have some semblance of timed agency, right? Maybe you have Zonia's hourglass, so you can hourglass it and like stasis the effect. Maybe you have Banshee's fails here, like whatever. Maybe you have enough MR that it doesn't matter. Or alternatively, you're like, I'm cooked, but let me get a couple of minions. So everyone feels like they can do something, right. But then simultaneously, you as the player are like, I am a god. I'm going to wipe them all out. The world is over. And it makes you feel like it's something important. So there's like counterplay on the part of the players who are experiencing it, even though you as the player don't feel like there's counterplay because you feel like you're like literally like, about to just gameplay everybody, right? With a gameplay
and even when you're doomed, you still have something you can do.
Exactly, right? Like no matter what, it feels like you have something you can do. Whereas when you completely violate the capacity for the player to see anything, that's why it's pretty bad. It's a similar frustration level as to like why like Nocturne has the ability that when they press the R button, like everyone loses vision on the map, right? And on the enemy team, and that's like really strenuous too. But the justification there is that that's an ultimate ability, and then technically, Riot does and League of Legends does allow you to see like distinct where the Nocturne R is by like clicking on the different players, and you can see where his ability appears in the fog, so you have an idea. But like, it's kind of the reason why like there have been like iterations of like examples of like ideas that or like local blindness, and local blindness is one of the most frustrating like mechanics that tends to exist in League of Legends or any competitive game, where local blindness happens and like you can't see anything and you're unable to express to other people that you can't see anything, so people just think you're stupid too. So like it just frustrates you and you're like, well, this sucks. Right. Like it sucks because I feel like I just got outplayed, but they didn't do anything to outplay me. And so, but the main reason, though, here and why this is a really cool question to me is, first of all, it taught me something new. I hadn't thought about the concept of rituals impacting the subjective player experience. That like, and now it's kind of informed a lot of how I operate with design. Where I think about like, even like the like when I think about monetization, right? Like I'm like, okay, well, I could just have a loot box and it just like I click it and then a pop-up will appear and it'll be like, you got loot, but it doesn't feel good. But what if a loot box appears and I'm like, and then it like. Fireworks, right? Even that subjective player experience and that subjective ritual has a positive effect on the user experience, and I'm like, wow, this is literally like informing everything that I'm thinking about when it comes to design now. And it was the first time I'd ever been challenged on that, and it's I think something that literally nobody gets challenged on until they're actually working on design and they start thinking about things in a way. It was probably like the highest level of design that I've been given, and I was literally like 19 years old, had literally no understanding of design at all, and I feel like it was like I like tell people I was like there was a before me and an after me, and that question changed the trajectory of how I thought about literally anything.
It's a really deep question, especially in how it makes you think about a player experience, not just as you, the player, doing the thing. Yeah. But also in like all of the other people reacting to it and how how even simple, very small decisions made in that process can completely change the end outcome for all people involved.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, other than that though, like I would say that like it results in like this like moment of realization where you realize like there's so much more depth to design, and like I think the key thing there is like again like even in that answer, like I was answering him with like different like avenues of like what I thought worked and like, you know, what I thought were the right answers. But coming out of it, like, even though I technically was wrong on the answer of like encompassing every aspect of what he was talking about, still got the job. Because it turns out that I was like, because the purpose of it was the, like, I was showcasing to them like how I was thinking about it, how I was communicating it, how I was articulating it. And not only did I like show them what I was thinking, what was going on in my head, but also simultaneously, like, you know, I gained value out of the experience. And I think that's ultimately what's really integral to the point of a design question is both parties should gain value out of it. Even your like right now, you know, we have our own lead at other side, and like in my other roles, I've had leads that are like way my seniors and all that. And even then, like, when we talk to each other about design problems, like both of us generally come out of it learning something new, given any scenario, assuming that we're both contributing equally to the conversation or whatever, right? Like,
sure.
And I think that's always been like that's really what like dictates my personal love for it, is that it feels like there's the barrier for entry is having the conversation. And that's ultimately what differentiates, I think, design through everything else. But overall, it looks like we are at time. So I guess for now, we can go ahead and call it quits here. Thank you guys so much for watching Designing Designers Episode 1. We will be making recurring episodes. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Wow, that was my first time ever doing that. All right. We'll see you guys next week.
See you, everybody.
Or 2 weeks from now.